Okay, hello everyone, my name is McGovern, and today I'll be presenting some work that I'm calling Re-examining Documentary Hypothesis. And this is an ongoing collaboration with Tom Lippincott, who is the head of the Center of Digital Humanities at Johns Hopkins University. So just to start a little bit about me, I'm a second-year PhD student, actually in computer science at Robinson College here. And I work in a field called natural language processing. So what that means is that it's everything to do with understanding and processing human language with computers. Within that, my thesis topic is actually structure-aware document analysis, which is a lot of jargon for if you know that the text you're looking at is a scientific article or a fairy tale, you're going to process them a bit differently. And I'm very interested in understanding if you know a piece of text is a chiasm, which is a kind of structure of parallelism that happens all over the Bible, can be processed differently. However, the work I'm presenting today is a little bit in a different vein. So another thing that I'm very interested in is this idea of documentary hypothesis. And if you haven't come across this theory, this is the idea that the Torah, as we have it today, is actually the result of 4 different constituent sources that have been combined and redacted in iterations over time to give us the final form that we have now. So on the screen you can see a diagram of one commonly accepted hypothesis of how this happens. So the J source is the Yahweh source, E is the Elohist, P is for priestly, and D for Deuteronomist. And so this idea of documentary hypothesis, this was scholarly consensus for most of the 20th century. And then consensus broke down around the 1970s or 80s. And so now people wonder if this is still a valid taxonomy. People propose different taxonomies. So there's a quote up here from Moshe Koppel, who's a professor of computer science at Bar-Ilan University, saying maybe we throw out this taxonomy and we just think of priestly and non-priestly instead. Maybe that's closest to a consensus now. So basically, this is a space where there are open questions as to how do we divide these sources. And me being a computer scientist, I wanted to design a computational experiment, a quantitative experiment that would let me test would an automated system come to the same conclusion as human scholars have, or where would it differ? And does that give us interesting insights? So how I conducted this experiment is that I took a digital version of the Leningrad Codex, which is the oldest surviving complete extant manuscript of the Old Testament. And this is annotated at the verse level, which of the 4 traditional sources that scholars think each of these verses came from. So I take those and I group them into the different segments. And from those, I extract both rare words using a method called TF-IDF, term frequency inverse document frequency. It's a very common technique in the field. And secondly, function words. So language can typically be divided into content words, which are things like nouns and verbs and adverbs, things that give you like the meat of your sentence. Function words are the kind of grammatical words you shove around those in order to make a sentence grammatical, like pronouns and prepositions. And there's reason to think that function words are very indicative of authorship, at least for modern authors. Okay, so we take the text, we extract these features, and then we pass them to a very simple machine learning classifier that takes all of these, about 6,000 different words that it's looking at, and tries to predict from that which of the 4 sources it would fit into. And in a 5-minute presentation, I can't really parse all these results as fully as I'd like to, but the headline result is that it works very well. Also, I'm sorry for the formatting issue, that you can't really see the results there. But I'm able to achieve about 98% accuracy on this, which is quite good. The diagram that you see is called a confusion matrix, and it's giving you a look at which pairs of documents seem to be confused. So it's actually a J document. Does it sometimes get confused as an E document? And so this is an interesting result because it means I can look at those 2 segments that were actually E but were classified as J, and kick that back to scholars and say, are we sure about this distinction? Or are there other mitigating factors that give you reason to disambiguate this? There's some other interesting insights that we could pull out, mostly so in a completely independent fashion from scholarship on this. The machine learning classifier learned that the names for God, as well as the name for different geopolitical entities, are the most useful things to distinguish these texts. That's actually quite validating for these scholarly approaches that have been taken towards this. It shows that there actually is differences in statistical usage across sources. So that's all I have time to pull out of this now, but you can ask me questions about it later. And just to say that I have many ideas for how this work can continue with more sophisticated methods, and also different areas of application. So thank you for listening.